Japan, mid-16th century, a land fractured by warlords, ambition, and upheaval. But amidst the chaos, 5 seismic shifts would reshape the very soul of the nation. This is the story of Sengoku Japan and the 5 remarkable events that changed it forever. Konnichiwa. Welcome to another journey into the history of Japan. Today, we'll examine 5 events that changed the course of history in Sengoku Japan, both in terms of military and cultural development. Number 1. The Arrival of Firearms. In 1543, a storm-tossed Chinese junk carrying Portuguese traders landed on Nagashino Island off the southern coast of Kyushu. What they brought would forever alter Japanese warfare: the matchlock firearms. Tanegashima Takatoki, the lord of Nagashino Island, purchased 2 matchlock muskets from them and ordered Yaita Kinbei, a local swordsmith, to replicate the weapons. Kinbei disassembled the weapon piece by piece, meticulously studied its construction. 8 months later, the first domestically produced firearm was born. The manufacturing methods of the matchlock guns were passed from Tanegashima to Sakai, Negoro, and Kunitomo, which became Japan's production centers of the firearms. And quickly, matchlock guns were mass-produced in the country. Firearms spread primarily among the daimyo of the western provinces. Among them, Oda Nobunaga was the first to systemize musket warfare. The Battle of Nagashino in 1575 was a landmark event that showcased the power of firearms. Takeda's cavalry was charging toward the allied forces of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu. But Nobunaga responded with tactics that Katsuyori hadn't dreamed of. He deployed matchlock squad with as many as 3,000 arquebuses that unleashed fire on Katsuyori's forces. Takeda's cavalry, once feared as invincible, suffered a crushing defeat. This battle marked the beginning of the Takeda clan's downfall. Firearms democratized Japanese warfare. Peasants could now become lethal soldiers. The mainstay of combat shifted from cavalry to matchlock musketeers, and it prompted the evolution of armor from traditional types constructed from leather scales to Tosei Gusoku, literally contemporary armor covered with the bullet-resistant metal plates. The introduction of firearms even accelerated Nobunaga, Hideyoshi, and Ieyasu's efforts toward national unification. Number 2. The introduction of Christianity. 6 years after the arrival of guns, another foreign force arrived, not with weapons, but with faith. Jesuit missionary Francis Xavier arrived in Kagoshima in 1549 and became the first Christian missionary to set foot in the country. He preached in places like Kagoshima, Hirado, and Yamaguchi, adapting his message to resonate with Japanese culture and Buddhist concepts. Despite language barriers and political instability, he laid the foundation for Christianity in Japan. Xavier left Japan 2 years after his arrival, but a number of European missionaries followed. His efforts sparked a wave of conversions that eventually grew to over 300,000 Japanese Christians within a few decades, a remarkable legacy. Many daimyo were favorable toward missionaries. This was because accepting missionaries allowed them to secure the privileges of lucrative Portuguese trade. Among them was Oda Nobunaga, a revolutionary of Sengoku Japan. By welcoming them, Nobunaga gained access to firearms and gunpowder, which were crucial for his military campaigns. But he also simply admired the Western technologies and culture brought by them. He allowed the churches to be built in Kyoto and granted them freedom to preach. But with Nobunaga's death came a sudden shift. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, once Nobunaga's loyal general, turned against the faith because he saw Christianity as a serious threat to his national unification efforts. In 1587, he ordered the expulsion of missionaries, and in 1597, 26 Christians, both Japanese and foreign, were crucified in Nagasaki. What had once been protected was now persecuted. The flame of Christianity, once nurtured in various parts of Sengoku Japan, flickered under the shadow of suspicion and fear. Some Christians went underground and kept their faith, but it wasn't until the Meiji era, more than 300 years later, that the ban on Christianity was finally lifted. Number 3. Ikko Ikki Militant Buddhist Leagues. Not all revolutions came from abroad. Within Japan, militant Buddhist insurrections, known as Ikko Ikki, rose in defiance of daimyo rule. The Ikko Ikki were militant leagues of peasants, monks, and local warriors known as kokujin in 15th to 16th century Japan, who followed the Jodo Shinshu, or true Pure Land sect of Buddhism. Fueled by religious devotion and social unrest, they rose up against feudal laws and samurai rule, forming self-governing communities that challenged the political order during the Sengoku period. The Ikko Ikki Uprising in Kaga province in 1488 was a landmark event in Japanese history, marking the first time a group of commoners and religious followers successfully overthrew a daimyo and governed autonomously. As many as 200,000 Ikko Ikki members rose up in revolt against the suppression by Togashi Masachika, daimyo of Kaga province, forcing Masachika to commit seppuku. For nearly a century, Kaga was ruled by an autonomous government of Ikko Ikki followers. Elsewhere in 1570, Oda Nobunaga entered into battle with Ishiyama Hongan-ji Temple in Osaka, the stronghold of the Ikko Ikki led by Kenyo, the head abbot of the temple. Kenyo was as much a military commander as a Buddhist monk. Under Kenyo, the Ikko Ikki members fiercely fought against Nobunaga's army and defended the temple for 10 years. Kenyo allied with anti-Nobunaga forces such as Saika Ikko Ikki mercenary forces led by Suzuki Magoichi, renowned for their expertise with the arquebuses, and the Mori clan that harassed Nobunaga's forces with their naval fleet. Kenyo finally surrendered, but the decade-long battle is known as the most difficult war of attrition fought by Nobunaga. Ikko Ikki Uprising demonstrated that even the commoners, when united, could rival the most powerful Sengoku daimyo. Number 4. The rise of Chanoyu, or tea culture. Amidst the bloodshed, a quieter revolution brewed. Literally, the tea ceremony, known as Chanoyu, evolved into a refined cultural practices. For warlords, it was more than aesthetics. It was diplomacy, status, and philosophy. In the dim light of a tea room, power was negotiated in silence. Sen Rikyu, the revered tea master, distilled centuries of ritual into a new form, wabicha. Wabicha was not about luxury or grandeur, but about finding profound beauty in simplicity, imperfection, and silence. Rikyu stripped away the ornate aesthetics that had dominated the tea culture, replacing them with rustic bowls, weathered bamboos, and the quiet hum of a thatched hut. His tea gatherings became meditative spaces, where even warlords paused to reflect. In these intimate ceremonies, alliances were forged, egos humbled, and power softened by humility. But wabicha was more than diplomacy. It became a mirror of Japanese spirituality, echoing Zen principles of transience, emptiness, and inner stillness. Even today, the spirit of wabi-cha lives on. It whispers through moss-covered gardens, hand-thrown ceramics, and the quiet rituals of everyday life. Rikyu's legacy reminds us true richness lies not in abundance, but in the depth of presence. Number 5. The rise of castle culture. Finally, the landscape itself transformed. Castles, once simple fortresses, became sprawling center of administration, culture, and power. The evolution of castles reflect the historical trend of the Sengoku period. Originally, they were simply military facilities and were simple fortresses built on mountain tops. From the high vantage point, the defenders could easily monitor the enemy movements, and the steep slopes and rugged terrains made the enemy attacks difficult. However, during the later Sengoku period, daimyo such as Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi began to reinforce castles with more elaborate stonework and extravagant multi-tiered castle keeps, transforming them into hybrid symbols of military and political power. And they came to be built on more accessible plains, which were protected by moats rather than the steep and rugged mountain terrains. Castles from the feudal era still stand today as tangible links to the bygone daimyo rule, symbolizing resilience, honor, and legacy, values deeply embedded in Japanese culture. From foreign guns to sacred tea, from rebel monks to towering castles, Sengoku Japan was a crucible of transformation. These 5 events didn't just change the battlefield, they changed the soul of a nation. Thank you for watching. If you found the journey into the exploration into Sengoku Japan fascinating, please like, subscribe, and share. ありがとうございました。さようなら。